Councilmember Curtis.
Present.
Councilmember Marshall.
Present.
Councilmember Shrubnik. Here. Mayor Baker.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Herbig.
Here.
Councilmember O'Kane.
Here.
We've got a treat tonight in that Boy Scout Pack 564 from Kenmore will lead us in the flag salute and present the colors. Gentlemen.
Mayor, is your mic on? Could you check? Is your microphone on, please? Thank you.
The status update on the St. Edward Ballfield project and options for the next step. Ms. Bent, our Community Development Director, and Mr. Hampson, our Development Services Director.
All right. Good evening, Your Honor and members of the City Council. My name's Rob Carlindsey. I'm the City Manager for Kenmore, and up here, seated with me at this table, are Debbie Bent, our Community Development Director, and Bryan Hampson, our Development Services Director. A little bit later, I'll explain their roles we're also expecting to have Washington State Parks here. We haven't seen them yet tonight, but hopefully they'll be here. Maybe they're stuck in traffic coming up from Olympia, who knows. But for the past several years, the city has been pursuing a plan to renovate the ball fields at St. Edward State Park, just east of the seminary building. In 2018, the City Council directed city staff, in partnership with Washington State Parks, to proceed with a process to complete an environmental impact statement, or EIS, for the proposed ball field renovations. With Washington State Parks as the lead agency for the EIS process, phase 1 of the EIS, known as scoping, is now complete. Phase 2 is the next step and will result in an EIS document for policymakers, including the Washington State Parks Commission, to consider. Why are we here tonight? Before proceeding with phase 2 of the EIS process, we request the City Council's direction. The consultant performing the work on the EIS has further refined a proposed budget for Phase 2, which will bring the costs over what the city currently has budgeted for the EIS. Given recent changes on the City Council and the need for direction on the EIS budget, this point between Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the EIS is a logical time to check in with the City Council and obtain further direction. As staff, we're asking for policy level direction from the City Council, and we don't expect to get into project details and their impacts. All of these details will be addressed in the EIS should the City Council decide whether to move forward with Phase 2. So, it would be an understatement to say there is passion on both sides of this issue. And we recognize that the decision on whether to move forward with Phase 2 of the EIS will not be an easy decision for the City Council to make. That said, we do believe that this stage in the EIS process is a good time to check in with the City Council and seek direction. So in just a second, you're going to hear from Debbie Bent, our Community Development Director, and Bryan Hampson, our Development Services Director, is also here. Debbie, consider her as the project manager. As Community Development Director, she oversees a lot of things in the city, one of which is parks development. And for tonight's purpose, she's the project manager for this St. Edward Ballfield project. Bryan has a different role. Think of Bryan as the regulator or the permitting guy. So he's the one that Debbie's going to come to when she needs land use permits, wetland permits, things like that for the project. So Bryan and his department issue the permits. Debbie and her department manage the project. So for tonight, you're going to hear a status update from Debbie Bent, our Community Development Service Director. At that time, we'll also give you a chance to ask any questions and provide any feedback. And then after that, we propose that you open it up to the public for public comment. And then after public comment, it'll be your time to deliberate and give us direction if you so choose. So with that, I'll turn it over to Debbie Bent.
Good evening, Council. As Rob mentioned, in order to complete the EIS environmental process, additional city funds are needed. $331,747 is the estimate to complete the EIS process. $200,000 is currently allocated in the city's 2019 six-year capital improvement program budget, of which almost $100,000 has been spent for Phase 1 of the EIS. Phase 2 EIS costs are estimated at $231,855. Therefore, an additional $131,747 in city funds are needed to complete the EIS process. And as Rob also mentioned, these additional funds are beyond those budgeted and are therefore needed. And this is a good time to ask Council for direction to authorize additional funds. As background, this process started in January of 2016 when the City and State Parks executed a memorandum of understanding to prepare a long-term lease whereby the city could improve the ball fields and then manage them for the ongoing period. In July 2017, an application for a critical area buffer variance was submitted to the city. The current field is within both the wetland and the buffer, and the variance is needed to reduce the buffer. The project would move the field out of the wetland. In 2017, a lease application was also submitted to State Parks, and an updated application was submitted in 2019. In May 2018, Council direction was to pursue an EIS, and in June 2019, an interagency agreement was executed with State Parks to reimburse the state for consultant costs associated with the Phase 1 EIS scoping process. State Parks was designated as the SEPA lead agency for the EIS process. The scoping report completed for Phase 1 is attached to your agenda this evening. The purpose of the EIS is to focus analysis on significant environmental issues, to identify project alternatives, to address mitigation, and include a public participation process. And the results of the EIS process would inform both the city's decision on the city's critical area buffer variance permit application, which is an administrative decision issued by Bryan, the Development Services Director, and also it would inform the decision by the State Parks Commission on the city's application for the 20-year lease. Both the permit and lease review and decisions on both are on hold pending the completion of the EIS process. The anticipated outcome of completing the environmental review is hopefully a project that would balance environmental protection with continuing the historic Ballfield use. So staff is requesting council direction on next steps related to the EIS. And there are options which are outlined in your agenda, Bill. There were three. The first one, continuing with the EIS process. This option is consistent with council direction given in 2018. And if council selects this option to continue with phase 2 of the EIS, staff would then bring back a new interagency agreement with State Parks for cost reimbursement. And staff would also bring back a future amendment to the capital improvement program to increase the EIS total budget by $131,747. Option 2, reducing the alternatives considered in the EIS. This option would not significantly reduce the EIS costs. However, direction on synthetic turf versus grass or field lighting versus no field lighting could result in an overall project cost savings. In 2018, staff presented cost estimates to council and a project cost of $5.4 million for a grass field with no lights and $7 million for a turf field with lighting. The third option is stop the project, and this is a policy question for council to consider. Are there other capital projects that have a higher priority for resource allocation, given the anticipated total project cost between $5 to $7 million, and there is currently no additional funding allocated in the 6-year capital improvement program for the Ballfield project beyond the EIS? So that's my update regarding background and where we are currently in the process. And I'll now turn it over to Bryan, who can talk a little bit more about what phase 2 of the EIS entails.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you, Rob. Good evening, Council, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and answer any questions that you might have. And I think both Rob and Debbie did an exceptional job explaining where we are today in the process. Just to give a little bit more explanation on the phase 2 of the environmental review. Now that we've done the scoping for the project, scoping takes a look at the different environmental aspects that we're going to look at through the EIS. So now we've identified what those environmental aspects are. Those will be incorporated into the EIS. And so with an EIS, we start as a draft, and we'll put together a draft EIS, and then we'll publish it for further comment and discussion. And so this isn't the last time public will get an opportunity to comment. They will also have an opportunity to comment at the after the draft EIS is published. Following the public hearing and the public comment for the draft EIS, we take a look at what we've heard, analyze those results, and incorporate those into the final EIS. Which will get published afterwards, and then we'll have to wait 7 days before we make a determination. So where we are, as Rob and Debbie had mentioned. We've went through the scoping project process with State Parks and their consultant, and came up with the areas that we want to analyze throughout the EIS. And we're ready to go to the next phase if that's the council's desire. Where it comes to the underlying land use application, there was a application for a variance for our critical area ordinance. And as Debbie mentioned, the variance was to locate some of the ball fields within the buffer of the wetland. And so there wouldn't be any of the ball field that would be located within the wetland itself. The ball field would be moved out of the wetland. There would be restoration and mitigation into the wetland, and also some additional area around the wetland and the additional buffers. That's really all the information I have on the permitting and environmental process.
Thank you. We will have opportunity to discuss and question at the end, but it's time now for citizen comments. I ask that you turn your phones off, please. Also, please try not to repeat what's already been said. I know it's hard. I don't expect you to not repeat, but I would ask that you try to limit. Mr. City Manager.
Before going to public comment, do any of you have some incidental questions from our presentation or anything that needs clarifying? Okay.
Don't think so. Thank you. We ask that you try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. There will be a timer on the screen behind me. When you get to that point, the clerk will give you a gentle reminder. This is a business meeting. We're asked to make a decision. This has been going on since 2003. So we really want to make a decision tonight. Please be respectful of each other. There are those that don't want the park developed. There are those that want the ball fields. We know this, you know this. Please be respectful of each other. No cheering. No demonstrations, please. There are a lot of people in this room, and we want to make sure everybody that wants to speak has the opportunity to speak. I'm going to ask you to wave your signs. Wave them now. Everybody wave your signs. I want everybody to have a chance to wave their signs and photographs. Okay? Wave to your heart's content. When we're done,
No, keep waving, keep waving.
keep waving. Let's get some pictures.
From behind, keep waving.
Want everybody to have the opportunity to wave your signs. If somebody next to you doesn't have a sign, give them your sign. Let them wave it. All right. Now, put the signs away. I don't want to see them anymore. We're going to be here for a very long time tonight. I want everybody to have a chance. You have 3 minutes, and please, clerk, please call the first person. And if anybody sees State Parks come in, please let us know. Oh,
Mayor-
you're there. Mr. Carlins, was there anything we wanted State Parks to say? No? Okay,
No,
fine.
no.
Great. Clerk, please call the first person.
Mayor, I just want to let you know we have 40 people signed up.
That's
So I'm
fine.
going to take number 1, Elizabeth Mooney.
Elizabeth Mooney, 5934 Northeast 201st Street, Kenmore. I have two signs here, Mayor Baker.
No signs. We've
No, I
had
know.
our sign waving.
I am coming with the idea of collaboration. I appreciate both sides that are here. And that's the only thing that I see is going to work, no matter what you vote tonight. So I do see that there's, in my opinion, a fiscal responsibility that you have as council. 3 years ago, I remember talking to Nigel, and my understanding, and Rob, and it was down in Lacey, and that was a really stressful day. But I think we've spent way too much money on consultants. If we had that much money to spend on the consultants for a habitat restoration at that location, I think we could have been working on kokanee restoration at Lake Washington, because the ball field, though not everybody may know this, but the ball field that you're talking about to put artificial turf on is the headwaters of Wyra 80226 that, bless her heart, Ann Hurst spent years of her life trying to protect the amphibians that are there. And in honor of her, I think we should just make sure all the children here know that none of the people who are carrying the green are against ball fields. And I think that if we can collaborate on something like a regional facility and put their ball field that they want in a place that is more appropriate for both our money and the habitat that the animals need, I think that would be a really wonderful thing to bring all these people together after tonight's meeting. So, in the interest of everybody else wanting to speak, I just believe that we should work on a regional sports facility at an already impacted site. We should stop this project because I think we should be improving the habitat restoration at this St. Edward Park. But we want to have the ball field, we just want it in a different location. Just think what it'd be like to be bringing all these people together to have kokanee restored and having the connection up at the wetland and the trails that go down to the lake connect the environmental education that's happening at that park. I think that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mooney.
Glenn Rogers.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, Mr. Carlinzi, and that wonderful staff we have in Kenmore. Whew. My name is Glenn Rogers, and I live at 19823 64th Avenue Northeast, Kenmore, Washington. Several years ago, I sat where you are sitting, here in this chamber, discussing all matters of things, including the budget, 522 road construction, and how to prepare for the growth of a city. We discussed not only what was good for the singles, the young families, and the adults of our city, but also the needs of the generation to come, the youth of our city. We talked about parks, a new baseball and soccer field, additional basketball hoops, and a viable skate park. Some of what we talked about has come into being, including basketball hoops at Rhododendron Park, the Jack Crawford skate park, and Moreland's baseball field. If you've not been to Moreland's baseball field, go see a game on a Saturday. You'll see these wonderful kids, this tall, running around and having a ball. Many of you in this room over the past year have driven your kids to play soccer and baseball to parks throughout the region. Why? Because you knew the value of such activities. Kids learning how to play as a team, a place to develop skills, character, and a love for the game. Some of you in this room want to see the demise of these places for individual and team growth because you've forgotten the times your kids were in this process. You forgot the good family ties that occur driving to and coming home from a great game. You've forgotten how such times add to the foundation of your family's life together. You've forgotten how important sports are to the maturation of our kids. Although there are some perceived good reasons on both sides of this issue, I'm not going to get into those reasons. I'm a realist. To face the issue you face as a council, all boils down to money, or the lack of funding for this project. Money, as usual, is the reason for not completing anything. Personally, I can't believe that the State Parks Commission can't do their share. We have all paid our share of taxes before and since incorporation. The city can't afford this entire bill. So what's the answer? Raise taxes? No. No! We don't want more taxes. Everything else can be worked through a panel of reasonable people representing both sides, sitting down and working together on the issues on this project.
Mr. Rogers, we're at 3 minutes.
Great. It's time to return to Olympia, to DC, and beat down the doors to get more money for this project. Mr. Mayor, you are the greatest asset the city of Kenmore has in working with Olympia and Washington. You've always worked for the best of the city, and thank you for your leadership and service over these 17-plus years.
Mr. Rogers, if I could please get you to wrap up.
Yes, I'm almost there. But now your work has a bigger focus. This generation of kids and those who follow need your help, your support. Please continue to lead this council on the journey that was started over 10 years, 12 years, to its rightful conclusion, the fulfillment of our dreams for our kids. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. No
Mike Suarez.
outbursts, please.
Good evening. My name is Mike Suarez, and I've lived in Kenmore over 40 years. My wife and I have 3 active children who love to participate in local sports, fun community activities, our local parks, a more walkable downtown area. Thank you for that. As a volunteer baseball coach in North Lake Little League, I've become more ingrained in our community and enjoy connecting with local families and contributing to the well-being and development of our youth. So as a coach, father, and active Kenmore resident, I urge you to please vote yes to restore the St. Edward's Ball Fields. So first, thank you for providing the parks and amenities that Kenmore already has. We love the hangar, we love the New Orleans Park, and we've enjoyed playing baseball and softball games there. But I urge you, let's not stop there. The St. Edward's Field is another untapped gem in our city. This is your opportunity to give another gift to our current and future residents. Families look for great schools, parks, and amenities when they're looking for a place to settle down. I would like our city to be one that offers such attractive amenities. However, there is currently room for improvement. You, as our council members, have a chance to change the course for Kenmore and offer an amenity which many can enjoy. Currently, we often travel to neighboring cities to practice and play games. And when we're in these neighboring cities, we're shopping there, we're eating there, we're filling our gas tanks there. We're overall supporting their businesses. Not enhancing and maximizing the local amenities within our city is counterproductive to supporting our local businesses and achieving a stronger Kenmore community. I urge you to look around at our neighboring cities and see all they've offered their residents and the youth in their community. It's time to improve the outdoor options for Kenmore's youth so they're able to recreate, play, learn, and grow in their own city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suarez.
David Dowell.
David Dowell, 14624 84th Avenue Northeast in Kenmore. Mr. Mayor and City Council members, I've lived in Kenmore for 15 years. While I have attended City Council meetings, I've never been moved enough to provide a public comment. This, however, is an issue that I just can't ignore. While I appreciate the rights of those that oppose the renovation of athletic fields at St. Edward's Park, I don't understand the complete logic of it. Those that oppose this work are asking to ignore investing in our communities. They want us to drive on congested roads to Woodinville, Redmond, Mill Creek, and other distant locations, not in our own backyards. They argue that we can find other places to play in our city. We already know that's not true. 10 years ago, this very council performed a search of viable outdoor recreations of this scale and found none. The fact is that this is our city, or this is it for our city, and we don't have any other alternatives. Last year, I was proud to be one of the fans in the crowd as the city opened its very first baseball field at Morelands Park. I listened to the words of Mayor Baker as he proudly stated, "I'm thrilled that our youth athletic programs and Kenmore families have a field that they can call their own." It made me proud to live in a community where my city government recognizes the value in investing in making Kenmore the kind of place where families want to live. I'll end with one last observation. Yesterday, my family watched the Super Bowl with another family we met through youth sports. 2 weeks ago, my family drove to the pass to play in the snow with 2 other families that we had met through youth sports. On New Year's Eve, we celebrated with a handful of families that we met through youth sports. These experiences may not have happened without opportunities to play youth sports in our community. I urge you to listen to the families of your city and do the right thing. Invest in our communities, invest in our families. Please allow the renovation of the athletic fields in St. Edward's Park to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dow.
Susan Carlson.
I have materials again.
Give them to the clerk, please. And if you could please call the person up and then the next person after them so we can try to move this. Thank you.
Okay, hello, council. My name is Susan Carlson. I live in the city of Kenmore. Excuse me, the city of Kirkland. The city of Kenmore has a unique and timely opportunity to develop a world-class eco-cultural and historic tourism retreat center and environmental education hub that could also be an economic driver for the city. The Ballfield Development Project is not consistent with this vision for the park. In addition to the many millions of dollars Daniels Real Estate is investing into the renovation of the lodge, Park's $750,000 is being invested to renovate the gym annex as the Environmental Education and Research Center. Architects Sundberg, Kennedy, and Leung are renovating the gym annex as a bright and inspiring environmental education and research facility. Representative Jerry Paulette sponsored a $75,000 9-month planning process in 2019, which resulted in a 75-page report, including that a university-led governance and business model would deliver the most robust and innovative environmental education programming possible. The vision of the EERC at St. Edward State Park is as of an outdoor classroom where experience transforms learning and stewardship takes root, a place to enrich people's connections with nature, provide environmental education experiences that are both place-based and grounded in real-world science, and that inspire next-generation environmental stewardship. The University of Washington Bothell is interested in taking the lead role for the EERC. More than 12 UWB faculty with interest in forest ecology, wetlands ecology, limnology, entomology, geology, ornithology, kokanee salmon, restoration ecology, environmental justice, education reform, and environmental education have expressed strong interest in the EERC. I met with the UWB Vice Chancellor for Advancement on Friday, who is also strongly interested, and tipped me off to the just newly announced $2.5 million education fund, which he believes the ERC is strongly positioned. Taken together, these linked investments in the historic lodge and the ERC, backed by the University of Washington, present a unique opportunity to create a world-class eco-cultural and historic tourism retreat, conference facilities, environmental education, and innovation hub for Kenmore, all that could also drive economic development, which could also be a new beacon of vitality for Kenmore, a major destination and ecotourism draw, education enrichment opportunity for thousands of Seattle residents who would also spend money in Kenmore. And the city could have all of this without spending another nickel. Proceeding with the Ballfield's development will significantly compromise the ERC's ability to lift. It will eliminate our opportunities to support our anchor program providers, Camp Roots and Wilderness Awareness School, who make extensive use of the ball fields, our opportunities to conduct wetlands and watershed science education, and more. Fully engaging University of Washington Bothell is so important to the ultimate success of providing the opportunities I've mentioned. We are moving in that direction, but this partnership is not sealed. Moving ahead with the Ballfield's development will present a downside risk and potential deterrent to UWB's confidence to achieve the return on investment in programming that they will need, both fee-for-service programming and our ability to attract large
Ms.
grants.
Carlson, we're at 3 minutes.
Okay. Our ability to attract large grants from the Innovation Fund and National Science Foundation. I hope you will consider joining us at St. Everett State Park for the ERC's first Earth Day event, April 19th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson.
So as the mayor stated, I'll be announcing 2 names. If the second person can be up, ready to go, that'd be great. Dylan Mason and then Peter Lance.
Hi there, Dylan Mason, 6208 Northeast 153rd Street, Kenmore, Washington, 98028. I went to Maywood Hills Elementary School, Canyon Park Middle School, Bothell High School, and Washington State. I live in Kenmore. I don't really plan on ever leaving. I have a lot of interest in this area. I'm also the assistant scheduler for North Lake Little League, and it's a challenge because there's just not enough baseball fields that we have. We're kind of dependent on the city of Bothell, North Shore School District, and Bastyr University. I've talked to North Shore School District. A lot of people say, why can't we fix up the elementary schools? North Shore School District has zero interest in fixing up an elementary school that gets played on by 500 kids 5 days a week and then turn around on Saturday and try to play a game on it. The middle schools don't even have baseball teams anymore. At one time they did, they don't any longer, so they don't have so much of an interest to maintain these middle school baseball fields anymore. It's leaving us very dependent then on Bastyr University. That's really our crown jewel facility. There's 2 baseball fields up there that's on the property and soccer fields. Bastyr has zero interest probably in maintaining a long-term baseball field on a university. They don't use that property. There's a very good chance in 10 to 15 years those fields won't exist any longer. Given that situation, we're in a real predicament as a league if we continue to grow our numbers. Why would Bastyr keep baseball fields that they don't use except for to lease out to the city and North Lake Little League? We're in a situation where we need a long-term solution. These fields make complete sense. I support the artificial field and the lighting. I live within light pollution. I think if it's a serious concern, it can be addressed at that time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mason.
Next up will be Tracy Bonashinsky after Mr. Lance.
Hello, my name is Peter Lance. I live in Kenmore. My concern is that haste makes waste, the tired cliche. We're going to rush into a decision tonight. Well, it is an appropriate decision tonight to table this for a while. The Daniels Lodge is arguably the biggest deal Kenmore has going on right now. It is going to be a flagship project if it comes off. It's going to be a destination that people will come to from around the country for conferences, events. It's going to be a unique property, and I know this sounds very weird coming from me, but I recognize that this is happening, and it could be a very, very important element in the city of Kenmore's commerce and attractiveness. We don't know, and you all have information now that I've shared with you, how the traffic and the parking is going to turn out and play out in the hotel and the lodge when it comes to be. The work, as you all saw, it was sketchy, it was inadequate, and quite honestly, it's very difficult to really know what's going to happen when the lodge comes. but I have a little mind scenario I'd like you to consider now. Consider that we charge ahead, we put the ball fields in here, we have 2 nice artificial turf fields. It's 5 o'clock. Daniel's Hotel and Lodge is trying to check in about 100 guests, fill 100 rooms. We have 8 baseball teams coming and going. Bear in mind that there are 4 playing, and they will be leaving, and 4 more will be coming. That's a total of 8 new groups of teams all coming at approximately this check-in hour, hour and a half. You're going to have a tremendous amount of traffic coming through here. And if this in any way hobbles the Daniels Hotel and project, you're really shooting yourselves in the foot until you can be sure that this park can actually handle the Daniels Hotel parking and traffic issues. And I don't think any of you can honestly say you know that the Daniels Lodge is going to fit into that park easily without difficulty. To go forward now and put spend money on a ball field seems like money very poorly spent, and therefore that is why I say haste makes waste. Let the Daniels Lodge get built, let it come up, get it fully operational, and make sure it is not choking or strangling the park already with traffic and parking issues. Please wait until you know how Daniels Lodge is going to turn out and that you can accommodate this thing. You can wait. You really don't have to do this tonight and invest money in the park, in ball fields, pardon me. You've already invested in the park. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Cody Pinster will be next after Ms. Bonashinsky.
Tracy Bonashinsky, Kenmore. The White House finalized last week a rule that seeks to remove protections from the nation's wetlands and waterways, thereby putting at risk the health of millions of Americans. The new rule aims to strip away Clean Water Act protections from waters that were historically protected from pollution long before the law was passed in 1972. It also paves the way for toxic chemicals from industrial facilities to be dumped in the country's rivers and streams, and for the destruction of wetlands for development. The EPA says there's no data on exactly how many waterways would be affected, but a leaked presentation by government scientists says more than half of wetlands across the country, as well as 18% of streams, would not have federal protection. That's nearly 2 million miles of the nation's streams and 20 million acres of wetlands. From Richard Howard, Professor Emeritus of Biology at the University of Montana. One of the things that is so remarkable about wetlands is that they are disproportionately important across big regional scales. Rolling back protections ignores basic science about how water connects underground. Wetlands filter water, regulate temperature, and control flooding. They also provide crucial habitat for wildlife. Nearly half of endangered and threatened species depend on wetlands. It literally is from microbes all the way to grizzly bears. It's everything in between, Howard says. In Washington state, more than 2,600 water bodies are already listed as impaired. 36,000 acres of Puget Sound shellfish areas are closed due to pollution. Tissue samples show that our fish are filled with mercury, PCBs, dioxins, flame retardants, and more than a dozen pesticides. 15 different salmon and steelhead runs in our southern resident orcas are listed under the Federal Endangered Species Act. We need more clean water protection, not less. We need to take more care with our watershed, not less. We need to be more mindful about development adjacent to our wetlands, not less. The people in our community who would like to see a ball field complex developed at St. Edward State Park adjacent to a Category 2 wetland and into 90% of its legally required buffer are good people. They care deeply about families and organized sports opportunities for youth. I agree with them that children deserve safe and welcoming places to gather to play things like baseball and soccer. Let us work together as a community to find places for such play that would not cost $5 to $7 million or more, that would not degrade and destroy natural open space with critical environmental and climate functions, and that would not turn a blind eye to the fact that we are in the midst of a global climate crisis. Kenmore can do better than the White House proposes for our wetlands. Kenmore can do better than ball field development adjacent to a Category 2 wetland at St. Edward State Park. Kenmore must do better. We need you to make the visionary decisions necessary to give all of our children a healthy watershed and a healthy Kenmore in which to grow to their full and highest potentials. Their futures cannot be bright if we do not care for their environment and climate now. Please do not move forward with a development that would degrade and destroy environmentally sensitive land and put our chances at a stabilized climate further from reach. Please consider lights at Morelands. Please explore more rigorously a joint use agreement with NSD. Please work to find solutions that do no harm to our environment and climate. Thank you, as always, for the opportunity to come before you and for your serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benestucci.
Is Cody Pinster here? Okay, thank you. And next will be Sarah and Violet after.
Hello, my name's Cody Painter, 7735 Northeast 199th Street in Kenmore. Also the president of North Lake Little League. I don't think this is hasty. This is 17th year. This has been being discussed, so I don't think it's being hasty. I think you're being diligent, going through the EIS process. Anything you build now anymore requires an EIS process, so we're taking the environment into consideration. Obviously, I think we should continue with this process, and that's being environmental stewards, is following that process. Just to put something in context, I started in this league 7 years ago. We had just over 300 kids. As of today, we have nearly 600 signed up for this year. So we're growing 4 or 5% year by year by year by year. And the fields problem is just getting worse. Yeah, everyone wishes it would have been addressed years and years ago. But the question that's getting posed to you guys as council members now and every council from here on out is going to be the same. Where are kids going to play? Orleans Park is great. That wasn't a net gain for the kids in our area. That field was there before. It's fixed up. It's a beautiful field now. The EIS process is to make sure that new fields or whatever else you build is being engineered correctly to protect adjacent land and adjacent environmental concerns. We have great examples of where this works right here. Tambar Creek Parks, 40 acres, wetlands, forest. It's a brand new turf facility. North Creek Playfields in Bothell. North Creek is an environmentally sensitive creek. I saw some pictures of a bald eagle. I get worried every single March when we have our jamboree there with the T-ballers out there, because there's always a bald eagle nest in one of the light towers. In my mind, I'm thinking one of these T-ballers is looking like prey, right? So, and I'm sure you've all seen the Facebook videos of that kid getting grabbed by it. I think it was a golden eagle. So there's examples of where there can be compromise, engineering, where synthetic turf fields, lights are in the middle of sensitive areas. No one's saying forget the environment and just build a ball field. There's no haste going into this. That's why we're all here tonight. I think you guys, many of you know how important it is to our community. So with that, I really, really, really urge you to go ahead with the EIS. Now, whether you do an EIS now for this field or you find a spot somewhere else, it's land in Kenmore, I'm just guessing, over $1 million an acre, right? If you were to go find a plot of land and the city had to purchase it,
We're at 3 minutes.
well, your price just doubled for a new field. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Malia will be next. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
Hi, I'm Sarah Camaresi, and this is Violet Camaresi, and we live at 19616 61st Place Northeast in Kenmore. We've lived there since she was in utero. I love ball. I played ball from the time that I was 7 until I went into high school, through high school. My daughter here has been playing, this is her 4th year with North Lake Little League. I was a bench coach last year for her team, and I absolutely want to see ball fields where we can play. This is not the right location for it. I, like most Kenmore residents, also appreciate the natural spaces in Kenmore, and this is a beautiful one. It's it's the ball field that they want to build is not in the wetland itself, but it's right next to the wetland. It's very soggy there. It's swampland. It's just not the right place for a ball field. And it's going to be expensive. You cannot have a natural field there because it's too wet. You need a turf field, and it's not the right place for it. So that's what I had to say. Violet has her own comments.
Yeah. Here we go. That's better.
Okay.
I think that a lot of people, a lot of the play that happens at Camp Roots happens in the ball field. And there's lots of animal tracks that get left there. It's a good space to run around in nature.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The Holtz family will be next. Hope I'm saying that right. Holtz family, okay.
Hi, my name is Malia Caracoglia. I'm actually a Bothell resident, but I'm a Washington state resident, and this is a state park. I am a parent, first of all, but I also have a bachelor's in outdoor recreation management, a certificate from the University of Washington in wetland science and management, and currently I've worked the past 10 years in ecological restoration of upland forests, wetlands, and riparian areas in the Puget Sound. I'm also an avid St. Edward's Park user, hiking with my family, mountain biking with friends, going to summer concerts. I have 2 kids. I have an 8-year-old boy, looks a lot like these boys out here. He dresses up in these uniforms. He's played soccer, he's played baseball. I am one of those moms that takes my kid to all those games. I also have a 4-year-old who's gonna be coming in the ranks. But you know what I hate? When my kids play on turf. It's hot. I worry about the chemicals. I worry about them inhaling plastic and rubber. It hurts for them to fall on it. It's just unnatural. The parking. I go to some of these play fields. It's stressful. I have a 4-year-old. There's crowds. It's busy. I worry about the safety of our kids, not to mention the stress of actually finding a parking spot. This proposal is allowing for 2 fields. Someone mentioned 4 teams playing at once. You have at least 15 cars coming per team. That doesn't include the grandparents, aunt and uncles coming also. So at the minimum, you have 60 cars trying to park there. You have the next round coming in. That's 120 cars. In the proposal, there was 7 parking spots. That doesn't really make sense. Have you been there on the weekend? It's crazy busy, even without a ball field. And then you have this hotel, restaurant, and conference center happening, which someone else mentioned. We don't know what the impact on that is. All that with one narrow road coming into the park, and there's trails that cross that narrow road. There's kids, bikes using those trails, crossing that road. All these cars coming into this park. I studied outdoor recreation management, and user conflict was a large component. Passive recreation, such as hiking, walking, and running, are some of the most popular reasons people use the park currently. Creating a large developed sports field at the entrance to a park like this takes away from the feeling you are entering a peaceful urban forest that people have come to enjoy and seek from their busy lives. You then contribute noise pollution. Remember, I have kids that have been to these games. They're loud. Traffic congestion, and a feeling is lost. I studied wetland science management, and together with my experience working in wetland mitigation sites, I really worry. Destroying a wetland and then trying to rebuild it and enhance it isn't as idyllic as it may sound. It is very expensive. You need those buffers. Once you just create a man-made area like this, it's not easy. It's expensive. It's no longer natural. You have to maintain it. This is what I do for a living. I'm the one that writes the budgets. It's expensive. I can give you my card after this. Happy for you guys to hire our company to do the restoration. It's long going, and is it the city? Is it the state? Who's going to be managing
We're at
this
3 minutes.
supposed restoration area? I want you to think about that long term as well. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
It'll be Whitney N. next. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Excuse me, my name is Andrew Holes. My wife Leanne, my daughter Eliana. My 2 boys had to go off to basketball practice, so that's why they had to leave. So we've been in this community for the better part of 16 years. We're former Kenmore residents. Now we live in just South Bothell, but our kids all go to school at Morelands Elementary, and we'll be going to Inglemore, so we're part of this community. I'm a board member for the North Lake Little League. I have been in this league coaching multiple teams for about 7 years. And one thing I can tell you, and I won't go too far into this, but we're growing every year. We're growing anywhere from 8 to 10% a year as a Little League. We need more coaches, more teams. we have more kids. And one of the things we don't have more of is fields. We are always taking second, third fiddle to some of the other little leagues in the area because we don't have the fields that we can play on in inclement conditions. So as a business, I'm a local business owner here in Kenmore, and I really feel that we need to invest in our community. We have that spot available, and it's also been in the works for 17 years. It's quite a while. You're not being hasty in any of this. There's a lot of people that would be here tonight that I know are in support, at least a lot of kids, but they're actually out of our community practicing baseball because, again, we don't have an all-weather field where kids can play at, and this would solve for that, and it would be an amenity for our community that I think we very much need. Anyway, obviously our community continues to grow and grow, and I think we really need to be forward-looking. Obviously, we want to take the environment into consideration. I don't know anybody that's in support of these fields that doesn't care about the environment. We absolutely do. Complete the EIS. That's what everybody wants. So.
I urge you to do it before it's too late. Our community is growing. We are building houses left and right. Our schools are overflowing. We have moorlands. My kids are fortunate enough to go there. But you know what? It's not enough. Please, I urge you to say yes. Think about the youth coming into our community. We all have to go outside of our community for everything. We've got kids in soccer, in baseball. Everything has to go outside, goes outside of our community. I urge you, do it before it's too late. Do it so my kids can benefit. If nothing else, I have a 5-year-old who plays baseball and soccer. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holtz.
April Rose will be after Whitney.
Good evening. My name is Whitney Negebauer. I appreciate your investment in listening to community members tonight. I'm the director of Whale Scout, a local nonprofit dedicated to protecting Pacific Northwest whales through land-based conservation experiences. My family and I, outside of that, visit the park at least 3 days a week for the purpose of spending time in nature, exploring, looking for wildlife, and hiking. St. Edward State Park is a largely undeveloped natural area that holds regional importance. The field and the wetlands are a crucial component to the larger ecosystem. All of Puget Sound's watersheds determine the fate of endangered salmon and southern resident killer whales. For those questioning the no net loss standard for this development proposal, I'd like to point you to House Bill 2550, which is a direct result of Governor Inslee's Orca Task Force in Olympia right now. The bill seeks the passage of a new standard of net ecological gain. For decades, no net loss hasn't been working, and we continue to lose habitat faster than it can be restored. In the Puget Sound region, 2,000 acres of ecologically important lands are damaged every year. We've already lost 90% of our salmon, and our orcas are at a 30-year low of just 72 individuals. Preserving and better yet restoring these wetlands will help put us back on track. Regardless of the fate of House Bill 2550 this year, it's Kenmore's opportunity here to be forward-thinking and smart with development. Losing this natural space would be detrimental to kids in an increasingly urban area. Research shows that our kids are disconnected from the natural world and are quite literally suffering the physical, emotional, and developmental consequences due to lack of time in nature. My daughter uses the field to run and play, building strength. She persistently searches for frog eggs, develops curiosity, plays games with her friends, using her creativity, her imagination, and developing social skills. This quiet outdoor space is perfect for the unstructured time our kids need. There are better places to locate these sports facilities. Thank you so much for your time and consideration this evening.
Thank you very much.
It'll be Karen Prince after April.
Hello. Silas, up here for me. My name is April Rose, and I'm a City of Kenmore resident, a mother to 6 children, and the owner-founder of the local nonprofit Forest School Camp Roots that operates out of St. Edward State Park. Thank you for having us here this evening. As the founder of 100% Outdoor Forest School, I would like to share with you why I'm so passionate about saving the field
wetland, meadow, and buffer at St. Edward State Park. Our children are living in the age of eco-anxiety. I can't even believe that's a word. For their whole lives, they have heard the story after story about how our planet is suffering and the animals are dying. That's so much to live with, carrying the weight of saving the planet on your shoulders. Can you imagine? When I was a child, I remember learning that creatures could go extinct. I remember feeling very overwhelmed, knowing that people have the power to kill off whole species of animals. I felt that I was too young to help. How was I going to make a difference? The children are here tonight because they care, and they want to make a difference. Many of our forest school children play youth sports like Little League and soccer. Have you asked the children what they think? If this is a legacy gift that you are truly wanting to leave for future generations of children, don't you think it would be good to check with the children and see? Ask them while you are standing out in the field, feet sinking into the mud, watching the birds fly by, listening to the frogs. Do you think we should tear up this field and turn it into an artificial sports complex? Why? They might ask as children do. Why? I have heard many reasons why a ball field is needed, but not one has justified why it should be put in at a state park. The intention for the land is to be preserved and cared for, all of the land. Just because Washington State Parks has opened themselves up to partnerships does not mean that we take advantage of it by saying we will give you some money if you let us destroy your land. This is not an improvement project as the name suggests. If the field were to be developed, it would go extinct forever. Forever. Children need that field to play freely in for hours, to explore in and to learn from. Removing the field so that it will no longer be a part of nature is not something children need to see adults doing. They need to see us being helpers and creative problem solvers. Can we preserve this field and improve existing ball fields, or even make more ball fields somewhere else? I know we can. I want to leave you with this. When one tugs at a single thing in nature, he finds it attached to the rest of the world. John Muir. And here's Silas.
Today I was in the field and I saw one person walking in the field, and he was taking pictures of the field, and he looked very happy in the field. And I have very fun in the field.
It'll be Annalise Stelzer after Karen Prince.
Thank you, Ms. Rose.
Thank you. Good evening, Council and gathered citizens. I think Elizabeth Mooney spoke my point pretty well at the beginning. I wanted to assure all the moms and dads and soccer coaches, Karen Prince, I've lived here for 33 years. I'm a neighbor to the park. I wanted to assure all the moms and dads and soccer coaches and players here that those of us against the proposal in our state park agree with you about the desirability of having quality fields closer to home, that many of us had to drive our kids to the same fields you do now. So I agree with all the people that say let's work together and find other fields somewhere else. Over the years, many of us have articulated our distress and feeling of loss if the dramatic changes proposed for the core of the park are allowed. And we have presented those arguments against the ball field there. But tonight, I just wanted to focus on the statements in the city's Parks and Recreation Open Space Plan, which also I agree with. They convey my priorities. First, on page 1, council goals from 2019. The goal 10 is to protect and enhance the climate, water, air, and forest environment. On page 25, natural resources. The recent 2019 Parks and Recreation Survey by the ETC Institute ranked nature trail and nature areas as top priorities for investment in the city park system. So also, natural environmental education programs also ranked within the top priorities. And I say how appropriate then the Environmental Education Research Center that is starting up, this is growing, is starting now in partnership with the UW Bothell. I think that will be a great investment for the city of Kenmore. People are going to come here and learn, and a wide range of ages. On page 45, community interests, and it prioritizes the things that the people of Kenmore has said they like. The first on the well, first of all, out of the 26 recreation program activities listed, youth sports program was 13. First is nature trails, second is indoor swimming in an aquatic center, paved walking, biking paths, 4 off-leash areas, and indoor fitness gyms. So for me and others who deeply appreciate the park as it is now, its history, its quietude, its habitat for wildlife, its openness to all, its offer of respite and renewal for our increasing urban population, its role in keeping the vitality of the land, these are gifts we embrace and cherish, and we need them more than ever. Let's work together to find a location for the ball fields, and I think we can do this. So I call upon the council to withdraw the ball field proposal from Parks, Recreation, and Open
We're at 3
Space,
minutes.
but continue to seek and support upgraded ball fields nearby. Also, I certainly would question the idea of restoring the historic field. I don't think it would be the same as what the proposal is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Prince.
It'll be Terminello after Annalise.
Hi, my name is Annalise, and my child participates in Camp
I'm sorry, what
Roots.
your last name is?
Stelzer Terminello. And my child participates in Camp Roots, and we've had such a great experience with that. And it's true that after going through traffic to get into the state park and then driving into the state park, it's just a totally different feeling. It's so peaceful as soon as you enter, and then while you're there. And so adding an artificial turf field with lighting and adding all of the people and the traffic would really shatter that for a lot of people. And I'm also concerned, after listening to some of the other people tonight speak, that if you're bringing in over 100 people for ball games in the weekends, and then you have this other development project going on, that might exclude people, especially on the weekends, who are just coming as residents or to enjoy the park. Maybe they wouldn't be able to find parking. It would be more stressful to find parking just to go on a hike or just to enjoy some going to the park with their family. I think it's just an inappropriate place to put an artificial turf ball field, and I'm sure that with all of these really intelligent people here, that we could come up with a different place that's more appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you.
It'll be Danny Howe after Terminello. Oh, sorry, Ms. Howe. Actually, you'll be next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, my name is Dante John Terminello. Some of my friends call me August. I'm here advocating for option 3 to end the environmental impact. I believe a lot of money has already gone into this project. I feel that the council members have already made their decision before today. So I'd like to address the crowd and the people advocating for the ball field. I don't know how many times.
You really need to address the council. That's who you're talking to.
Well, I'm speaking to everybody in the room today, and I just feel like there's about 20 parking spots that are in the ball field area now. I just can't imagine with the overdevelopment of the lodge and the Bastille, the birthday parties, that you will find any parking spaces for these games that you hope to have here. I hope that you're prepared to hike on one of the starter trails to come into those woods. I'm really concerned about the idea of saying that we care about the environment, but putting this field in this area, AfroTurfs. I run 2 art programs in parks that have AfroTurf. I've seen nothing but this AfroTurf fall apart daily, little microbes of green plastic that fall apart. And it goes, and this area is an environmentally sensitive area that feeds into Lake Washington. I hear a lot of talk from the ballpark that people have to travel very far so their kids can practice sports. My kids are in sports. I understand that feeling. I travel hour and a half so my kid can go in the wrestling tournament. But at the same time, you know what else is not getting built more of? Undeveloped land. I mean, I have to drive from Seattle just for my kid to be in this forest school program. And we're talking about the economic benefits, like right now, there's thousands of kids using this park. How it's naturally created is developing program that is first in the nation. I mean, forest schools and things like that is just budding in Washington. I come from Florida where there's nothing like that. And people are coming from all over the region just so their kid can spend a day outside, because you can't go anywhere else for this kind of state park, natural preserve area. And I believe that is the fundamentals of the lodge and Bastiers to take advantage of this natural area. So I am buying coffee here. I am going to the coffee shops, the food stuff. People are coming in here spending money. And I do agree with everybody who is coming here today that these leagues deserve a state-of-an-art complex that can hold many fields, that can have housing and hotels and industry that's connected with it, but the state park is the wrong place for this. I am really shocked that this was ever considered to put something in a natural preserve. 100 years ago, you would see nothing but mostly woods out here. This is the last section of that, and now we're talking about developing that, and I am very concerned the mentality behind that.
Thank you very much for your comments.
It'll be Mandy Newer after Danny Howe.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say thank you for everything you do for kids and families. The last time I sat here and I started talking to you, I did something smart, and I just deferred to my three players. They came up and they talked.
Can you state your name and address, please?
Yeah, Danny Howe, 15609 62nd Place Northeast.
Thank you.
I couldn't possibly be as articulate as those three kids were that day. And actually, I'm not supposed to talk to them, but I just want to say to the kids that are here, all the kids, how proud we are of you. I've been a volunteer coach for Northlake for 7 years. You have one of your best parents over here, Joe Marshall, whose kid was on my team. He is incredible. For my day job, I spent an entire career working for national and statewide children's organizations, Casey Family Programs, Committee for Children, Children's Home Society of Washington, advocating for programs that help create strong children and families. It's no mistake that I'm also a Little League coach. My evening job is not just to give kids a chance to play a game. Little League programs provide critical social and emotional learning opportunities for kids. These programs teach leadership, they teach teamwork, empathy, the importance of positive self-esteem as kids grow and learn. Little League is a powerful platform to support and empower children, but none of this happens if we don't have fields. Throughout my 7 years of coaching, my kids have also endured the severe shortage of fields. We regularly practice on fields with 4 teams on the same field. We prepare for games by having players and coaches pick up sharp rocks from substandard fields. We don't have enough kids. We don't have enough fields to serve our children. I don't know how many of you saw the Seattle Times article today on the diversity of King County. I read that, and I was kind of sad because I looked at our community and I thought, we're in one of the least diverse communities in King County. But my second thought was, thank God we have programs like Northlake Little League to engage kids of color who live here. Little League is a microcosm of the larger world that allows kids from all backgrounds to come together. I've seen it over and over and over again. Shy, isolated kids that come into our program, that put on that uniform, that make friends, that have a place to belong for the first time. Then they go back to their school and their teammates support them. They belong. We spent 16 years trying to get fields for our children. 16 years. And the first time we have a chance to make it happen. My question is, when are we finally going to act? At Northlake Little League, we have volunteers. They volunteer hundreds of hours. We just volunteered 12 hours on Saturday. We don't ask for anything, but we ask for your help. The future of Little League baseball in Kenmore is in your hands. Melanie, Joe, Milton, Deborah, David, Nigel, Karina, Rob, the future of Little League baseball is in your hands. We cannot do it alone. We are all volunteers. Please don't turn away from this project. I know I have 6 seconds. I just want to say I would hate it for us to be here in 16 years and say that it would be wonderful to have a wonderful Little League program here. But then turn to our children and say, we tried once, but it all went away because we didn't have the fields. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your comments.
I understand Mandy stepped out for a moment. So we'll take Nathan Dowell and then David Lane. Sorry. Going by the order we're signed up. So I had Nathan Dowell and David Lane will be second.
Hello, my name is Nathan Dowell. I'm 10 years old, and I have met a lot of kids in my life, and most of them I met through sports, baseball, soccer, basketball, even football, and they're part of my community. They're part of our community, and I just want to thank everybody for helping out with baseball and soccer and sports. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dow.
It'll be Trish Lundeen after David Lane.
We'll have Nathan back here to talk for me. My name's David Lane, Kenmore resident for 30 years, 15827 61st Lane Northeast in Kenmore. My son Spencer was Nathan's age, and it's heartwarming to have all the kids here. When my son Spencer was 10 years old, he spoke almost as well as Nathan did. This is something that the city has been trying to do for some time. The ball fields, I guess I should also add as an introduction, I am a volunteer on the Kenmore Financial Sustainability program, so I look forward to understanding more and supporting the council in that program going forward. I've been a participant. I signed as one of 1,000 signatures 15 plus years ago to support this within Kenmore. Kenmore's been trying to do this for many, many years. I ask that you proceed at this point in time with the EIS. Now, the maintenance upgrade of the existing ball fields, my understanding is that it's in the state parks plan, their camp plan, and it's been there for 10 plus years. The ball fields have not been maintained. They need to be maintained and upgraded so we can all play on them. Other than that, it was well said before me. Please proceed with that.
Thank you, Mr. Lane.
Your Honor, people are welcome to adjust the podium. There's just that button right there.
There's a button to raise and lower it.
Yeah.
Feel free to make it comfortable for you.
It's on the right side.
Right there.
Yep.
Great, because I'm short, but I'm not that
But
short.
the microphone moves. Bend
It'll
the
be
microphone
Scott
where you
Van
want.
Cleve after.
Hi, I'm Trish Lundeen, 7212 Northeast 148th Place, Kenmore. And I'm absolutely here to say, please proceed. I'm not going to say turf or natural. I want you to proceed with phase 2. Let's do it right. Let's do it smart. I think you're already on the right track. Mostly my family has played soccer, and we can go down to Arrowhead Elementary, and you can get 3 really young teams on that little tiny field practicing at the same time. But as soon as your kids get a couple years older, you're driving to Maltby 2 nights a week for practices because one older team pushes out all of the younger teams. So you can't do that. You can't push out the younger teams. You have to prioritize the younger teams. So families are just driving. You drive to work, you drive home, and then you pick up your kids and you drive back to Maltby or Woodinville. So I think we can do it. I think we can respect the environment and do it smartly. And I just urge you to do that. And a couple of points that I've thought about is that we're not asking for a complex. We're asking for fields, smart fields. I trust your judgment, and I trust the science that's behind the studies. I think a lot of the traffic is mitigated due to timing. And if you've ever been at one of the North Lake fields, it's kind of a cool juggling act. The parents are coming in, the parents are leaving. I think we could manage it. And, you know, as communities grow, we'll find new tasks and new projects, but I really urge you to please, please help us out and help out all the future generations and you know, keep doing what you're doing, but please proceed. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Lundin. Can we take 5,
Sure.
please?
A break?
Yeah. just
Okay, sure.
Give us 5 minutes.
And then Mandy will be next. Go ahead.
All right, I'm Scott Van Cleve. I am the North Lake Little League Softball VP. I live at 8119 Northeast 149th Street in Kenmore. I have 2 kids who play sports, specifically soccer and softball. I've been the softball VP for 5 or 6 years now. Every year during that time, we've seen growth in our league, and a lot of that growth has been in girls playing softball. In order for those kids to play, they have to have a place to practice. Both games and practices require fields. The scheduler, Mandy, who's here tonight, is constantly running out of fields in order to schedule practices. Games have to be played on decent fields. The scheduler's job is a nightmare trying to find fields for all of our games. We have games where we are co-leaguing between different leagues in our organization. We're constantly trying to meet kind of the bar of the level of fields that those other organizations expect. For soccer, my daughter plays soccer games in Maltby, in Woodinville, in Bothell, in Kirkland. I honestly can't remember the last time she played a game in Kenmore. It might have been 5 years ago. I have been hearing about the field improvements at St. Edward's for years. This is not something that's hasty. We really need the fields for our kids to play on, and all the other proposals that I've heard so far have all been smoke and mirrors. None of them have been, no one's mentioning anything concrete. They're just saying, hey, we should do something different. Well, we could have talked about that 5 years ago, but there's nothing there. This is 4.5 acres of a 321 acre park. We're not asking for the whole park. We're simply looking for the fields that are there to be renovated into something usable. Please move forward with restoring these fields so that we can use them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Cleve.
It'll be Jeff Bryan after Mandy.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thanks for opening the floor and allowing us to come and speak tonight. There should be a handout going out for...
I'm sorry, your name?
Mandy Neer.
Thank you.
Not far, but near. But I handed out, just to give you a general idea of what our field schedule looks like. I don't know if you guys got this handout. Most people don't realize within the North Shore School District, we have 5 Little Leagues. North Lake Little League, which I am the scheduler for. NGSSA, which is the slow pitch league, North Bothell, North Shore, and Woodinville. So when it comes to North Shore School District, we can only reserve the fields that reside within our league boundaries, which is Arrowhead, Kenmore Elementary, Kenmore Middle School, Shelton View, Lockwood, and Frank Love. And Frank Love is the small field, the one that has all the portables on it. So like only our T-ballers can really use that field. And then we have to do all these fields permits through City of Briar, Bastyr, Snohomish Parks for Forest Grin, City of Bothell, so we can use Doug Allen and Cedar Grove, and then the North Shore School District. We can't use Woodinville fields because we have no residents in Woodinville. The City of Bothell is very limited because they only allow you to have, it has to be City of Bothell residents, not unincorporated King County, City of Bothell residents. Been trying to get schools through the Lake Washington School District, but we don't have any students that are Lake Washington School District residents, and then City of Kirkland, we can't get any of their parks. King County to try and get Big Fin Hill, we can't get Big Fin Hill. So if you look at the schedule, like on Tuesdays, we have 4 fields to have practices on. Out of 55 teams, we have 4 fields. The other fields are used for games. So this year, I'm estimating that we're going to be spending between $56,000 to $58,000 on fields. That's just a flat fields fee. That doesn't include the fees that we pay for maintenance, like the sand that we use to drag the fields or the chalk that we use to chalk the fields. That's just straight field fees. and everyone always talks about the school district fields. Well, for example, Inglemoor High School, if I want to use that softball field, they charge $60 an hour. So that's $180 for one game. We don't have the budget to reserve those fields. So those are just not feasible for us. If we were to do, if City of Kenmore was to come with an agreement with the school district, we share our fields with the slow pitch league. So the days that we don't have the field, they use the fields. So even if we came up with an agreement with the school district, we would gain 0 fields. And the fields aren't big enough for games. They're not Little League standard size fields, so we could not use them for games. So I urged the council members to move forward with this project because unfortunately, St. Edwards, that is the only field,
We're at
the
3
only
minutes.
space we have in the entire city of Kenmore that we could put a field on. Thank you.
Phyllis Finley will be after Jeff Bryan.
My name is Jeffrey Bryan, longtime Kenmore resident. I now live in unincorporated King County, just north of Kenmore. I've been a Little League coach. I've had kids attend Camp Roots. We use the park on a regular basis, both for sports and for private activities. There is a way for both of these uses to exist at the same time. There is, I hear a lot of the opposition today has been special interests, people that have a singular interest in the park. Oh, I run a business, Camp Roots there. Oh, I attend an outdoor conferences there. I'm trying to save whales, I've heard. We have technology. We're doing EIS statements to try to make sure that we properly plan these fields. They've been in the works for 15, 16 years now. To stop and start somewhere else now, they'll never get built. We're already past the point where we need to stay the path and build the fields. Want to say something? Okay. Thank you.
It'll be Francis Hill after Phyllis Finley.
Phyllis Finley, Kenmore. A goal, a gamble, and the sunk cost fallacy. If the goal was to solve the urgent need for more ball fields, it was a long shot gamble to choose the most expensive design and the most problematic site. Several years later, and the goal has not been achieved, and the gamble has not paid off. The players who needed a field are still without a field, and Kenmore taxpayers are paying the price. In fact, by continuing this process, you are very much like the gambler who believes that just one more bet will surely result in a big win. By moving forward with the next exorbitant expenditure for the EIS, the council participates in the sunk cost effect. This occurs when a behavior or endeavor is continued as a result of previously invested resources, according to Hal Arks and Catherine Bloomer in their study about sunk costs. And according to Professor Christopher Olivola of Carnegie Mellon School of Business in a recent article in Time magazine, the sunk cost effect becomes a fallacy when it pushes people to continue a behavior and make decisions that no longer serve them. Sure, we may have already spent nearly $1 million on this project and have received nothing in return, but if we just spend $200,000 more, we will certainly get what we want. It's psychologically hard to accept that nearly $1 million is already sunk and we're not getting that back. Sticking with a plan, even when it's no longer effective, could be an attempt to reconcile the mental and emotional disconnect between paying for something and not getting the expected return on investment. Please do not continue to gamble with my money. The bet after yet another huge EIS payment that state parks will reject the proposal is very high. The bet after yet another huge EIS payment that state parks could accept one of the proposal variations with many expensive, unaffordable strings attached is also very high. Either way, we don't have the money for the gamble, and we definitely don't have the money to be betting on a $7 million ball field development that is not a citizen priority. To paraphrase Olivola again, what's done is done. There's nothing you can do to regain money that's already been gambled away. Pursuing this project further not only isn't getting our money back, it gambles us deeper into a financial hole and puts us further from the original goal. Please vote to stop the St. Edward Ballfield Development Project and provide ball fields in a more appropriate place with a more reasonable budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Finley.
Jenny Wang will be after Francis Hill.
My name is Frances Hill, and I live in Linwood, Washington, and I'm here speaking as a citizen of Washington State because this is a state park, right? And I'm kind of saying, wait a minute, this is a state park, and we're talking about the city of Kenmore's plan to use this state park for a site for a sports field to benefit a private, narrow, and local demographic, and it seems inconsistent with the concept of a state park. And I just agree with some of the people that were talking about the quietude of the park, and a field, just because it's not being used for sports doesn't mean that it's not being used for something. Being quiet and contemplative in a place is doing something. So I've heard, I was a little disheartened by seemingly Kenmore's sense of entitlement that this is ours to use for ball fields. You know, Kenmore's been trying to do this for years. The future of Little League is in your hands. But wait a minute, it's a state park. This gem is for ball fields? No, it's a gem of a state park. It's not, like I said, it's inconsistent with the idea of the ball fields. I do say give your kids a place to play. Give them a state-of-the-art field, but just not here. This is not the place, and I urge you to vote no on the development of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hill.
Is Jenny Wang here? No, Jenny Wang? Okay. We'll do David Stokes and then Chris F. Sorry, I can't read the last name as second.
Hello, my name is Dave Stokes. I'm a Kenmore resident and also a professor of biology at UW Bothell. I also should say I was a soccer dad for 10 years and coach, so I know we need fields, but as many have said, this is really not the place. Part of my research has been on urban green spaces, in particular St. Edward State Park. I've been studying the park for the last 8 years, and what I have learned over the last 8 years is that this is really a unique place. I would like everyone on the council to appreciate that. We live by it, so we don't think about it, but it is absolutely unparalleled in the entire Seattle metro area. There is no place that has the natural ecosystems that are as intact as St. Edward State Park. It's easily the most ecologically intact public space. One of the things I've been studying over the last 2 years is the diversity of flora and fauna in the park. And here again, it's unparalleled. We have species here that most other parks do not have. So river otters, bobcats, reproducing bobcats, flying squirrels, northern red-legged frogs, species that are really just hanging on in the Seattle metro area, and they are found here. Why are they found here? They're found here because the habitat is spectacularly intact compared to anything else in the Seattle area. They're found here because it's a big park. They're found here because it's relatively low disturbance of the type that would happen during these Little League games and other sports are the exact kinds of things that would be detrimental to these species. They would take a hit. And they're here because we have real diversity of habitat. So it's not just the spectacular forest that is truly spectacular, but it's also the lakeshore, the wetlands, the riparian zones, and yes, even the open fields and open wetlands. That all contributes to the biological diversity of the park. 99.9% of this kind of habitat actually more than 99.9%, is gone. Kenmore has the opportunity to capitalize on the tiny, tiny scrap that's remaining. 100 years from now, people are not going to look at Kenmore and say, boy, they've got a great ball field. What they're going to look at is, if we act correctly, they have this spectacular habitat. It's old growth by now, right? That would be completely unique. Just one final thought. To my mind, the fact that over 500,000 people a year come to St. Edward to enjoy it suggests to me that it's a really attractive park. It's sort of like a Mount Rainier. In fact, you could argue it's more valuable than Mount Rainier because it's a place people can get to. And you wouldn't put a ballpark in Mount Rainier, right? You want to preserve Mount Rainier. So I urge you to turn the Ballfield project back and look for an alternative location. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes.
After this, Chris, it'll be Chris Rothmeyer.
Thank you, Council. I'm Chris Finger, 7904 Northeast 155th Street. I have been a Kenmore resident now for about 10 years, and it's been a great place to raise a family. I think you guys are doing a very good job with developing the parks, developing the downtown. I'm here today to support the ball fields. I have two very active young girls in both soccer and softball, and I have been involved coaching them and involved with their leagues. Mandy mentioned earlier, I'm the scheduler for NGSSA, which is North Shore Girls Slow Pitch Softball. And I can tell you, we have many of the same struggles, obviously, that the Little League has in finding fields that are appropriate for our girls to play. This is a grave need, I think, in our community. Many of the other thoughts that I have on the matter have already been expressed, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. The one point that I'm left with is the historic use of this site has been as a baseball field. And it surprises me that it was allowed to deteriorate to the point where they are unusable at this point. But I feel like opponents of the proposals here are talking about this new baseball complex that's going in. This is maintaining and updating an existing play space that has coexisted with both the park and the historic buildings on the site for decades now at this point. And I urge you to continue your efforts and stay the course on the plan as you have plotted. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Finger.
It'll be Russ Porter after Chris.
Hi, Chris Rothmeyer, 15416 100th Avenue Northeast. I'm here with my daughter and one of my players on one of my teams. I'm a longtime resident in the area and have experienced and appreciated variety of fields, right, that we have for our benefit, for our kids. Without the fields, we can't have sports. Without sports, we don't have friendships. Without friendships, without sports, we don't have life skills, right? It's such a key component, and I've heard from several of the schedulers in the room tonight about the challenges that have been faced. We don't have enough space, enough fields to do that. So obviously, this will be another opportunity for some additional space. Also, they have. There was a time when we were on, way back when we were on these fields, right, with my older siblings, right, playing. Now the condition is so poor that we don't even have practices at St. Edward's or at neighboring Bastyr. That's just the grounds are so so deteriorated. So there was a point we did play on these fields, but now, right, for the younger kiddos, we haven't been able to appreciate that. So, I'm also I work a pediatric occupational therapist. I think that working with our youth, getting them involved in activities at school, in the community, sports, friendships. This is such a key component to all of our kids' development. And without the fields, without the space to have these games and fields, and we can't make that happen. So thank you in advance for your consideration, and I support the project.
Thank you, Mr. Rockmeyer.
It'll be Jeff Rash after Russ Porter.
Hi, I'm Russ Porter. I'm 529 223rd Place Southeast in Bothell. I'm also part of the NGSSA Girls Softball League, and I'm here today to support the renovations of the fields. I think that they're fields that have been there for a long time. They need to be replaced and renovated and brought up to current standards. I think you guys are doing a great job to do your due diligence and make sure that you're doing it the right way. A lot of people have come up here and said that, well, we'll just put it somewhere else, but there is no place else. This is a great opportunity to just fix what's there and to make it work for everybody. But if you put it somewhere else, then you're tearing down somebody else's habitat somewhere else, and they're going to be just as upset. So I think it's a great opportunity to just work with what you have and do your due diligence and make sure it's done right. Thank you.
It'll be Vicki Grayland after Jeff.
Good evening. My name's Jeff Rash, and I live at 6431 Northeast 198th Street in Kenmore. My first experience with St. Ed's Park was there was an oil spill in the Straits of Juan de Fuca about 30 years ago, and my responsibility was bringing harbor seals, oiled harbor seals, and oiled birds to the seminary to get them washed. That was my first walk through St. Ed's Park. There weren't many ball fields. There was nature. There were hikes. There were things that were going on. You start picking away at these parks. And as the previous speaker talked about, we have 72 orca whales left here in Puget Sound. What we do to the land affects these animals in the sea. It affects us. And I dare say that probably 10, 15 years from now, these kids here that are playing baseball and soccer in these fields will not have any orcas in the Sailor Sea to go see. So we've got to think very, very carefully what we're doing with this land, why we're doing it with this land, and the history of this land is nature. Not a ball field, not a soccer field, not a cricket field. It's straight up nature. So think about what you're doing. Think about the future. Think about what does Field of Dreams mean for you. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Brush.
It'll be Greg Sladen after Vicki.
Hi, I'm Vicki Grayland. I live in Kenmore. For several years, I've been speaking to City Council about the overdevelopment of the ball fields at St. Edwards. And for the last few years, I've been speaking about the climate crisis. And these two issues dovetail. I think we have to look at everything through the lens of climate change and the climate crisis. Dropping the ball fields project would give both the state parks and the city of Kenmore the opportunity to become leaders in climate change mitigation. Preserving the wetlands and the natural soil are very effective ways to do that mitigation. In 2003, when this subject first came up, when this project idea first came up, we didn't know as much about climate change as we do now. So when you know better, you can do better. Please consider the common good and the next 7 generations. The St. Edward State Park is a precious jewel, just the way it is. Let's preserve it, and I support option 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grayland.
Before Greg goes up, is Silas still in the room? Silas is next. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take Beth DeVoe after Greg. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Greg Sladen. I'm here on behalf of myself and my wife who couldn't make it. We live in Kirkland, but we visit St. Edward's Park between us 3 to 4 or 5 times a week. So we're very frequent users of the park. And I'm here to support option 3. I think if you look at the slides that you were showing, the current slide right here shows a blue heron, it shows birds, it shows nature, it shows mountains, it shows trees. That is a really good vision, I think, of what Kenmore could be. And the previous slide that showed the footprint of the field with the state park, it was just trees. That slide had nothing on it but trees. And that is really an amazing thing to see in the context of a huge metropolitan area. And that is indeed the strong virtue of St. Edward State Park. The trees, that is something that is just absolutely amazing. Many cities in the country don't have anything like it. The only undeveloped shore on all of Lake Washington, 400 feet of elevation gain, and the diversity, as the professor was saying, with the wetlands, the meadows, the forests. I think that keeping it in as pristine and natural state as possible is the best way to go. So I don't have, there have been many other very eloquent people here, so I won't take any more time. Just wanted to put myself down, and for the sake of my wife, who's a true steward of the park and would kill me if I didn't say something here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Slayton.
Is there Dakota Rash here? Yes, okay, you'll be next.
Hi, I'm Beth DeVoe, and I'm from Woodinville right now. I used to be on Finn Hill. And I was moved to come tonight mostly for fiscal reasons, because when nature doesn't want you to build something, it is not a smart thing to do. And but then I started hearing some of the other concerns, and I found it very depressing that some people think that baseball field is not a single issue. The park offers more than just a baseball field for all these other people, and it needs to be acknowledged. Those people can't do what they want to do in this park in St. Edwards. They can't do that in the other parks. A park comes to mind, a mowed grass, some trimmed trees, a lovely place to see some sky, maybe a few birds. But what St. Edwards offers is nature, and the kids can't get nature elsewhere. And my child has, all my kids, right? They've done the different sports and whatnot, and I had to drive to Maltby and the other places. But when they've taken nature school classes, that is something different. And something we need to keep in mind is that every year in this country, over 500,000 jobs in STEM cannot be filled. We have to go to other countries to bring talent into this country. We don't have STEM motivation. And it is proven behavioral science that children who play in nature, not just in the backyards or the regular parks or playing sports, kids who are in nature are motivated to learn more about it and to study. And St. Edwards is this gem that offers that. So I beg you, yeah, I saw that big picture with a big, right in the middle of it. If you destroy that right in the center, that is the worst possible place to ruin nature. It's an entire ecosystem that needs to work together. And you want to go in and make nature do something that nature doesn't want to do. And that's just going to be expensive over and over again. So I urge you to consider, why are the schools not providing what they should provide? They have those beautiful fields next to them. They should be giving back to the community. Why are Sundays not being optimized? I heard that people are not opening up fields on Sundays. We have other resources. And over the last 16 years, real estate has moved around. Our piece, maybe we should, if somebody wants to come in and develop in Kenmore, which there's been a lot of growth, great for Kenmore, but we need to plan for kids to be able to play in a park. And if baseball teams go from 300 to 600, there's definitely a need. We definitely need parks. Where else can we get kids a park experience? That's not taking away from the other kids that would like to have a nature experience. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Is Keith Dunbar here? Okay, you'll be next after Dakota.
Hello, council members. Thank you for the time and patience that you have given tonight to all the speakers. Once again, as I spoke to...
please.
Oh, right, sorry. My name is Dakota Rash. All my important mail still goes to 6431 Northeast 198th Street, even though I am currently mobile as I'm in school. So to jump back in, as I said to you previously when I spoke, a lot of my points have already been said, so I will jump around just a little bit and bring up a couple more things that I think are important. When I was talking to one of my professors at the University of Washington, they directed me to a study authored by Department of Ecology that says wetland buffer effectiveness increases with buffer width. As buffer width increases, the effectiveness of removing sediments, nutrients, bacteria, and other pollutants from surface water runoff increase. So you can't just make a small buffer that's really great. You need the size. You need the width. My other comment addresses sort of a false dichotomy I'm worried has appeared tonight. We've heard comments that have said, A lot of great things come from youth sports, and I very much agree with that. I participated in them myself as a kid, but that's not the only place they come from. Those benefits also come from passive use of the park, from quiet outdoor time. I can tell you as someone who was a camp counselor with Mercer Slough Environmental Learning Center and a park ranger at Grand Canyon National Park in charge of youth programs, not in charge, but I developed them. Kids come alive when they're outside. They get an opportunity to develop complex social arrangements, and they develop leadership, and the shy kids who sometimes, I remember, didn't look like they were really in their league at the camp with all the extroverts, come alive and point out sword ferns and make up stories about the trees. We need these spaces for those kids to grow and thrive. I've also heard tonight that this is only a small percentage of the park and that the environmental interests are smoke and mirrors. I can assure you that they're not. That's why an EIS is happening in the first place. And even if this is only a small percentage of the park, we don't hit a button that says initiate climate change. That's not one decision. That's a bunch of small decisions that come from a neglect of the environment, that come from thinking that we can fudge on our diet, no pun intended, and give a little bit here and maybe develop something here or build into 90% of a wetland buffer elsewhere. So Kenmore City Council, I urge you, in the same way I urged you when I was at this lectern previously, be the city council that embraces the concern of the environment. That is going to be more and more important as we develop into a climate crisis. We need every one of you to please take these concerns seriously and keep the environment in your minds, because once we leave it, we can't get it back easily. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Is
Rush.
Barbara Lau still here? Okay, you'll be next, Dr. Keith. Thank you.
Good evening, Keith Dunbar, 14310 93rd Avenue Northeast, Kirkland, Finn Hill area. Been an area resident for about 30 years. And in a past life, I'm the former Chief of Planning and Environmental Compliance for the National Park Service in the Pacific West region. There are three distinct types of parks and levels of park jurisdiction in the United States: national park units, state park units, and local park and recreation spaces at the county and municipal level. In this national system of parks, each level has its own unique and stated purpose, laws, and policies. St. Edward's State Park belongs to all of the people of the state of Washington. Lighted turf ball fields are not an appropriate use of state park land, and these types of formal recreation spaces are most often found and developed and managed by local park and recreation districts or city park departments. The city park departments of neighboring communities like Bothell, Kirkland, Redmond, and Bellevue are good examples of where these types of venues are locally provided and are sometimes done in partnership with local school districts like Lake Washington or North Shore. This land is within a state park, and the ultimate decision on the future use of that land rests with the Washington State Parks and Recreation Commission. I would urge the City Council to stop continued work on the EIS process and instead look toward the establishment of either a park and recreation district or city parks department within the city that would have the taxing and bonding authority to acquire needed parkland within the city or participate in a partnership project within the greater region. The city could then develop various types of parkland in accordance with a park master plan that would include optimal locations and scope of appropriate spaces for active recreation spaces, including but not limited to artificial turf surfaces and lighted fields for organized and more intensive recreation use. I want to underscore this. While I'm fully supportive of the citizens of Kenmore exploring their opportunities to provide for all forms of recreation and open space for your citizens, coveting an informal natural grass space that is for all state park users to enjoy is not an appropriate way to help solve the long-term recreational needs of the Kenmore community. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Is Russ Goldberg here? Okay, you'll be after Barbara.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Barbara Lau, and I'm a climate reality leader, and I have a master's degree in geography with a specialization in surface water hydrology. My professional experience includes that as an environmental science for a major civil engineering firm where I prepared SEPA checklists, environmental impact statements, wetland delineations, and mitigations. I do not believe that this plan to put the ball fields in the wetland buffer is financially smart or environmentally sound. I do not understand why the city of Kenmore can put these ball fields in the state park. I live in the city of Redmond, and I use the state park along with 7,000 other visitors from throughout King County, and I spend money in Kenmore only when I go to the state park. I also look forward to the world-class lodge that you guys are building and the Environmental Education and Research Center where I would love to come. As a hydrologist, though, I understand the value and function of the wetlands and the wetland buffers. Some of these values include nurseries and rearing habitat for the salmon and other species of concern, the unique ecosystems of plants and animals which support our aquatic ecosystems, the food sources for a wide variety of animals, cleaning of sediment, nutrients, bacteria, and pollutants from streams, safe harbor for young salmon fry during winter storm events that flood rivers, the water storage for surface water flooding, groundwater recharge, cool groundwater discharge in the summer. As someone who's worked in wetlands, I can say that wetland delineation is not clear. There is a gradation from the stream bank as the land gets drier. This is not cut and dry, and the buffer is an extremely important part as it serves many of the same functions as the wetland itself. The difference is kind of almost just the ratio of plant species. Thus, the buffer is really an integral part of the wetland. And by impinging on the wetland buffer with hard surfaces, you will be decreasing all of the functions I just listed. In addition, the ball fields will create hot, flashy water from the artificial surfaces, and those will flow into the wetland, further degrading the water quality. It'll be no easy build either, with the amount of excavation, dewatering, and backfill that will be needed. The dewatering process is extremely harmful to the neighboring wetland. I can imagine the cost overruns for both construction and maintenance of this location that will be thrown onto the city taxpayers. And finally, in this era of climate change, which we are now experiencing, the Northwest will get warmer and wetter winters. We will need to increase our wetland water storage, not build on them. My strong recommendation is that you increase the quality of the wetland and its buffer and restore the native species to help our ecosystems all the way up to the southern resident orcas. And I also would like to say, as the mom of an elite baseball player, I spent 13 years on bleachers, and I know that this is a phase. My kids are going to be going to that park for 50 years.
We're at 3 minutes.
Okay. Please withdraw the proposal for the ball fields. Thanks.
Thank you.
Kaylee Sachs will be after Russ.
Thank you. My name is Russ Goldberg. I'm at 13412 64th Terrace, Northeast Kirkland, which is less than a mile from the south edge of the park. And my wife and I have been neighbors of the park for the past 37 years and intend to live the remainder of our lives, we hope, in the neighborhood. We've raised 2 terrific kids. They're both in their 30s, and they were fortunate enough to take advantage of the sports facilities in the area. And the experience for my kids and our family was quite unique and very valuable to us and very rewarding. But I would bet that my kids have the opportunity to be here tonight, they would both be at the podium urging the council to step back from developing the field, because I would bet they would say that the experience they had in the park, in the solitude and the quiet of the park, was a far more valuable experience than playing soccer, playing baseball. And as a previous speaker from tonight who did favor building the field, putting down artificial surface, referred to the site as a, quote, undeveloped gem. And I believe it is a gem, just because it is undeveloped. And I'm still perplexed, as other people brought up the point, that how the state would allow an artificial turf park to be built. Again, I just have a hard time wrapping my head around it. The unique character of the park, I fear, and it may be an unfounded fear, but it is a fear that the character will take a hit when the lodge is finally finished. But I also feel even more strongly that developing a field with lights or even without lights would be far more detrimental to the character of the park, which I found amazing. It's an amazing, unique resource in our midst, and I therefore urge the council to please favor and vote for option 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Is Mike Satterley still here? Oh, great. Okay, you'll be after Kaylee, and he's our last one signed up.
My name is Kaylee Sachs, and I feel like we should keep the park the way it is. I used to go to Camp Roots, and I had a lot of fun. I felt a lot calmer when I was with nature. I feel like the trees are really important for us and the animals around us. I think that everyone gets a chance to talk. I feel like kids should get a chance to tell what they feel about the park. I am not a huge fan of sports, but a lot of my friends are. But I understand that sports are very important. They help kids explore her teamwork. But I feel like nature is a lot more important to me and my friends. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Tough act to follow.
You can raise that up on the side if you'd like.
That's all right.
Okay.
Mike Satterley, 5909 Northeast Arrowhead Drive. And I'm the president of KB Fast Pitch. We're a girls fast pitch organization representing about 100 families in the local area. KB stands for Kenmore Bothell. And I would just point out that we don't practice in Kenmore. We don't have any games in Kenmore. All of our practices are actually in Woodinville. To my knowledge, we've never practiced or played a game in Kenmore. So just to echo what everybody else has said here earlier, we have limited opportunities to practice, limited opportunities for our kids to come together here in Kenmore. And I do want to say that this is kind of a tough position for me. I do really agree with every single person in this room. And I really do like the idea of sunk cost. Whoever said that, I think that's a great point. But I would like to focus on the sunk cost that we've put into finding fields here in Kenmore for our kids to play in. Fortune came out with a statistic that said that 90% of female CEOs played sports. And I'm here for the girls. And I just want to say how important that is, that our kids are able to participate in sports. I also think it's great that they're able to participate in organizations like Camp Roots. Both are critical for the success of our youth. And I would encourage you to move forward with the EIS and make the best decision you can make for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Satterley.
Mayor, there's nobody else signed up.
Anybody else wishing to be heard? This is your opportunity. Anybody else wishing to be heard? All right, we'll declare public comment closed. Next item on the agenda is council discussion and possible direction on the EIS process for St. Edward Ballfield. And just for clarification, we're not talking about building ball fields. We're talking about completing the EIS, completing the environmental impact statement to determine, as the professor said, the number of bobcats and that in St. Edward State Park. So, questions? Anybody on the council? Questions, comments? Councilmember Curtis.
So this is obviously a complex issue, and I'm so excited that so many of you came out tonight. I've been on the council 12 years, and many of you over the years have spoken at comment time, and many of you have emailed, and all that input is really important. But I'm going to be using 3 issues to help me make a decision. The first one, what are the obstacles and likelihood of success? Would the EIS recommend turf and lights, which I think is what's probably needed to actually increase the evening use and the spring and fall seasonal use? Would park staff recommend that full design? Would the park board approve it if the staff didn't recommend it? Would we win the legal challenge related to the wetlands? I expect there will be a legal challenge. Would we have $7 million to build it if it got through all those other steps, given our present financial challenges? Number 2, I look at the cost-benefit ratio. When this started many years ago, the estimated cost was about $3.5 million, and the turf and lights would have given us extra evening use, extra shoulder use, they call it. It was still an expensive project, but building ball fields is just expensive. So I was actually in support at that time. But over the years, the cost is now up to $7 million plus the sunk costs, which I think are already around $600,000. And I think it's pretty unlikely that the EIS and all those other steps would get us lights and turf. So the cost has gone up and the benefit has gone down. So that cost-benefit ratio has gotten worse and worse over, particularly I would say, the last 3 to 5 years. Number 3, data. Citizen comments is really important to get the sense and feel what's important in our city. It's for especially new things and just to hear people's comments in general. But when there's an issue that's somewhat divisive, and I understand we're all trying to understand the other side does have some validity to their viewpoints, but when there's a lot of passion on both sides, I don't think citizen comment solves the problem. So, being a science guy, I sort of like the scientifically validated studies, and we just did one of those. In 2019, we did a survey. It was part of the PROS plan, which is Parks, Recreation, and Open Spaces plan. So we have data. We asked our citizens what's important. Not come comment on ball fields. We asked them, in the light of 26 things, where do ball fields stack up? That's a different question than a one-issue discussion, even if it's multiple times over the 12 years I've been on council. So I think it scored about 13 out of 26. So our citizens have given their opinion on where ball fields rank compared to trails and swimming pools and lots of other things. As a family practice doctor, I totally support exercise and youth sports. I don't think you can get enough exercise from thumb texting and games to get a cardiovascular rate up. So I'm a big fan of exercise, not only for youth, actually for older people as well. We do recognize the need for ball fields. We actually, in our PROS plan, there's a proposal right now to put $3.5 million in that plan for fields. So it's not like we're ignoring fields. It's just that I will look at these 3 things as I make this decision. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilmember Shrubnik.
I'm assuming this is the time before we vote. Okay.
Well, I also want to thank everyone who provided input tonight, and I also want to thank all the people who emailed and came to meetings over the last 15 years on this topic. I've only been up here for a couple years, so tonight is just one piece of the input. I'm looking at a few reasons why I'm supporting proceeding to finish the EIS process. First, the pros plan makes it clear that there's a need for fields, and the folks tonight, of course, concurred with that on both sides of the discussion. So then the question is where? We've looked at a number of sites over many years, and here's why I think the Ballfield at St. Ed still makes sense to consider. First, renovating an existing field is better for the environment than disrupting additional open space to build fields. And certainly it saves the $4 to $7 million that would be needed to purchase land for other ball fields. So then there's a question of what are the impacts of the proposal on the environment and efforts to address climate change. I think everyone on this dais supports protecting our environment and addressing climate change. And as the developer of the framework for Kenmore's first climate action plan, I'm acutely interested in the answers to these questions. And I'm deeply attached to the park. I lived next to it for 8 years. I was a founding member of the Friends of St. Edward State Park. I fought the McMenamins development, and I helped build the playground. So here's my perspective, given that background. I think the EIS is really the only way to adequately address the environmental questions. And that's why I support finishing the process. To me, it isn't an either-or issue, the environment or a ball field. I look to the evidence that will be produced by the EIS to provide the critical information as to the best option for both restoring the wetland and renovating the ball field in order to maximize the benefit to both. We know that the ball field proposal will shift the field out of the wetland that it now encroaches, and it will restore the wetland to full functioning. Currently, the wetland is significantly degraded, certainly not pristine or intact. Degraded means it's not able to provide the environmental benefits of a functioning wetland. So a question for the EIS is whether the increased activity in the buffer from a renovated field outweighs the significant environmental gain from restoring the wetland to full functioning. The EIS would also address whether artificial or natural turf is better for the environment. There are arguments on both sides of that debate. The answer to these questions from the EIS will not only help us with this field decision, but can guide ball field development decisions in the future. So some say that the wetland could be restored in other ways. Thus far, no other group other than the City of Kenmore's proposal has attempted to proceed with the state review processes or shown the willingness to take on the cost of the wetland restoration and its maintenance over time. Some say we could increase plant capacity if North Shore School District fields are renovated, and what we know is that the only way capacity is increased for these fields is with lights, which we are exploring with the school district. Finally, some say that we should simply leave the degraded wetland as it is used as a learning lab for kids. And I love Camp Roots. I love that idea. I wish it were around when my kid was growing up. But if we do that, the wetland will remain degraded with its loss of environmental benefits, though arguably there is some learning benefit that comes from kids being able to tromp through the wetland unimpeded by typical wetland protections. That said, I would suggest that there is quite a bit of room in the remaining 322 acres of the park, that's 98.5% of the park, for fun and for learning. In sum, I support completing the EIS process in order to obtain the scientific guidance that will help us get to a win-win in terms of methods to both restore the wetland and renovate the field.
Deputy Mayor.
I want to start off by thanking everybody who came and spoke. I know it's not easy to get up at a podium and talk in front of a couple hundred people and us looking all serious behind our dais, so I appreciate you all coming and participating. It's important, it's informative, it's appreciated. A year or so ago, council made the decision to do an EIS with state parks. We're going to do that EIS to inform us on to get us the information we need to make a good decision going forward. It was a measured decision. It was a decision that all of our stakeholders, I think, understood, and we're now midway through that process. Aborting the process right now in the middle of the EIS goes against the council's word from a year ago and is not really how we build trust as a council when it comes to policymaking. I feel that we owe it to many of the stakeholders who've been involved in this for the last, as long as I've been on council, frankly, probably longer, to honor that commitment, finish the EIS, and then evaluate from then how we're going to move forward. I'm not voting today to build the fields. I have not made a decision on the field situation. I am looking forward to the EIS to help inform that decision, and that's why I'm going to vote that we continue the EIS. I think there's valuable information there that we will need going forward.
Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you to everybody for coming out tonight, and especially the young people who spoke. Outstanding job, and you've got to be here. You've got to be involved no matter what the decision, no matter what your viewpoint. You're the guys who are going to matter. You're the future here. This is a very difficult decision for me because I played baseball on that field. I got married in that park. My kids had the great fortune to play baseball in the North Lake Little League, and also we had the great fortune to be coached by Danny Howe, along with all the other great coaches. Outstanding, obviously, outstanding contributions to building young people's characters and fun, of course. I respect and I adopt a lot of what Councilmember Curtis pointed out in looking at the big picture in the situation. We have a number of different factors that have come to play, I think, since I played baseball on that field. I don't know where or how or why the decision ever got made for the North Shore School District to allow the fields to get to the stage around our schools that they are now. We played at Arrowhead, we played at Lockwood, we played at Elementary, we played at all those fields, and I think that the place we need to lobby is perhaps Olympia, if it passes from the council's decision tonight, perhaps Olympia, but more immediately at Monte Villa Parkway, just over in Bothell. It is the North Shore School District I think we need to partner with in exploring better options. This also because we've been told that our financial lines are going to cross in several years. Our expenses are going to exceed our revenues. I think before we go it alone, we have got to look to see if we can make a partnership with North Shore School District to improve our existing fields. Perhaps, and I don't know the rationale for the Sunday non-use day or the rest of it, but perhaps the league can also look into that too. I mean, I'm saying that to demonstrate my sincere concern for being able to have adequate fields. And also in the pros plan, as we saw, there was a statement stating that the North Lake Little League has been able to meet the current needs of Canmore residents. Rather than turn kids away, North Lake Little League has coped by having teams share fields for practices and shortening scheduled time for practices to accommodate this growth on existing fields. While the league is able to use these techniques to continue its operation, one additional baseball field would be needed within the city of Canmore to accommodate its share of fields. I also saw the figure 4 fields cited in the pros plan. That's at page 66 of the pros plan. It's a difficult decision. I think we must, in addition to that, we got to protect St. Edward's State Park. There's nothing else like it in our state. There's nothing else like it in Canmore. I think we've got to explore a different option and take a look at what we can do to be fiscally responsible to partner with North Shore School District. So at this point, I'd be in favor of looking elsewhere and ceasing the current EIS funding and seeing if we can partner with North Shore School District.
Councilmember O'Kane.
Well,
I want to echo everyone's gratitude that you've come here today to speak on behalf of our community's needs for a ball field and St. Edward's Park. This is really important for our community that you're here. When I was running for this position, and I'd leave my flyers on doorsteps and speak with our community members, I would always write on my flyer, your voice and your vote matters. And I really meant it. I really wanted to see council meetings that are engaged like this. So for me, it's very